Kind of a windy, stormy day here in Utah. Kind of appropriate for the story I'm going to tell. Tack för sist, välkommen tillbaka. Welcome back. Thanks for being here. If you're digging the videos, I appreciate a thumbs up, smash it, subscribe, but comment. That's what I really dig. But I appreciate you being here. So listen, 2 or 3 months ago, I did a video. It's the biggest video I've done on YouTube, which for some people it's nothing, but for me it was a lot. And I had really mixed feedback on it. I had a lot of cool comments. In fact, most were positive, but there were quite a few people that were unsatisfied with the story. I didn't give enough detail. I didn't tell enough about what was going on. And just to kind of tell you what I'm talking about, I did this video, like I said, 2 or 3 months ago, about the creepiest experience I had on my Mormon mission. And at the time, I told what I was comfortable telling. Now, it had been well over 40 years. It's 43 years ago that this happened, the summer of 1983, up in northern Norway. And I'm going to try and go into more detail on it. I'm going to try and provide all the details that I can remember about it. And I'm just going to tell the story. It creeps me out to this day. It's part of the reason I didn't go into a lot of detail. I won't have all the facts, all the details nailed down because it's so long ago. But it's so embedded in my brain. It's like burned into me. It's something I'll never forget. So, northern Norway, I got to Norway in late April of '83. And I want to nail this down. So this would have been, it was probably late summer, early fall of '84. And I believe it was in either Kristiansund or Bodø, if you're familiar with Norway. By the way, there's 2 cities that sound very similar: Kristiansund, Kristiansand. Kristiansand is in the south, Kristiansund is in the north. It was one of those 2 cities, and I was in several cities, so I don't have it nailed down. I actually have a diary of this. What I should do is read the diary. I need to find that page. I just thought of that now. I had completely forgotten about that. I have a diary somewhere in my basement because I kept a journal every single day when I was on that Mormon mission. And I'm sure I talked about this experience. So just to kind of lay the background for you, I had a fairly new companion. A companion is the person you're serving with at the time. You're usually with them for anywhere from a couple months to maybe 4 or 5 months. It's pretty common. With probably like 3 to 4 months being the average. This guy was brand new. He did not speak the language very well at all. Like, you go to the missionary training center back then in Provo, it's still there. It's much bigger now than it was then. I hope this wind isn't drowning me out. Guess we'll find out. And, in theory, you learn the language in 2 months in the missionary training center, but in reality you need to get into the real world, into the actual country, to really start picking up the nuances of the language and really understanding the language. So this guy was brand new. He'd been in the missionary training center for 2 months, but I was his first companion, so he was newly to Norway. And good dude, always liked the guy. We got along, and I had had a couple of real D-bags for companions before that. So I was excited to have somebody that actually seemed like we got along, like we had similar likes. I think he was from Utah. I don't want to say his name, but he was a good dude. And, back then, I know they're trying to get away from this. It's called tracting. You just knock on doors, cold call basically, all day long. And we did it about 70 to 75 hours a week. It was crazy. very unproductive, but that's what we were supposed to do. And once I had decided to go on a mission, I decided if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I didn't really want to go. But once I went, I was like, well, I'm here, I'm going to do it right. So I didn't screw off. I didn't, break the rules. I know guys that joined gangs and drank and had girlfriends and all kinds of weird ass when they're on their missions. I never understood the point of that. Like, don't go. Just, stay home and do that stuff. So I was, pretty model missionary. I read my scriptures every morning. I had somebody the other day say, this guy doesn't understand LDS doctrine. Now, granted, I've been out of the church for 25, 30 years, but back then, trust me, I knew my stuff inside and out. I could scripture bash with the best of them. Somebody bring something up, I'd say this scripture, this, I could nail it down. I had read tons of church literature, not just the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price, all of that. But I had read many books on Joseph Smith and Brigham Young and church history, and I was really into it because the scriptures can be kind of boring. There are parts that are kind of cool, but it can be really boring. So I liked the other stuff where it was kind of more modern reading and more storytelling. But I'm going to get a little closer just to make sure this isn't drowning me out. If it gets much worse than this, I may have to go inside. We had the craziest storm come through here yesterday. Lasted about 20 minutes. I thought all my trees were coming down. It was nuts. So that's kind of the setting. So me and this guy are out knocking on doors one day. I remember it was a beautiful day, sunny and warm for northern Norway. And we came to this door. So you're not, as missionaries, you're really not supposed to go in and teach like a single woman, like one woman by herself. I don't know if it's still like that. I'm assuming it probably is. It just isn't a great idea. So we knock on this door, and this lady comes to the door, and I instantly got this just weird feeling. It's really hard to describe. It's kind of like, I don't know, like when you're going to go to a really scary movie and kind of the feeling you get as you're going in and you know you're going to get scared. And it kind of had that kind of foreboding feeling to it. She came to the door, and I want to try to put an age on her. I was 19 at the time. She was probably in her mid-30s, I would guess. I remember thinking she was kind of old, which is hilarious now. She was probably in her mid-30s. It was just her there. She had long blonde hair. She was pretty, but in a very weird way. She moved weird. Just her body language, her motions, everything was odd. And she had this weird smile on her face, like a creepy smile. And she like most people, when we'd knock on their doors, they'd be like, no, not interested. And if we ever got in to talk to them, it took a little bit of doing. People didn't just say, yeah, come on in. This woman basically did. I used to know her name. I'll bet it's written in that journal. I'll see if I can find that. If I can, I'll do an update on this. And I remember looking at my companion and thinking, we probably shouldn't go in, because this is a single woman. 2 missionaries, 2 guy missionaries going in. That's inappropriate. But he, like I said, he barely spoke the language. He was this really happy, naive dude, is a good way of describing it, at least at the time. He just seemed like a kid. He was only probably 6 months younger than me, but he seemed like a kid. I already spoke Norwegian before I went to Norway on my mission. I'm from Norway, so I picked it up really fast, got right back into it. Within a few months, anybody I talked to there just assumed I was from Stavanger, which is where I'm from. All these cities and towns have different dialects, and I have a very strong Stavanger dialect. But I remember he just kind of had this goofy smile on his face, like he's just going along with the program. He doesn't know what's happening here. He doesn't understand her really. You know, he gets words here and there and little phrases, but I remember she made this kind of weird motion for us to follow her in. And as soon as you got in the door, it was a set of stairs. There must have been an apartment on the bottom. There must have been two doors side by side, and we went upstairs to hers. And I remember getting upstairs. It's this beautiful sunny day. I'm already starting to get creeps. It's this beautiful sunny day, and she's got like the drapes drawn or the shades or whatever she had on her window, and it's kind of dark in there. And as we got up into her apartment, I remember she kind of turned around and did that creepy smile at me again, but her face was like in half shadow. And I remember like being taken aback by it, like, whoa, something is not right here. And I just had that danger, danger, danger thing, you know, the adrenaline flowing and something telling my body something's not right here. Kind of that fight or flight, you know, defense mechanism we have built into our bodies. I kind of felt like that. But, you know, I'm trying to be a good missionary. I want to teach people the gospel, you know. I wanted to bring her to the truth, even though I wasn't even completely sure that was the truth. I was there to do a job, and I was going to do it. So we sat down on the couch, and this is where it starts to get a little vague because it's so long ago. I remember she asked us if we wanted a snack or a drink or something like that. And we kind of made a non-committal answer. Oh, you know, that's nice, you don't have to, whatever. And she said something to the effect of, your master would want me to, or something. She might have said Jesus would want me to, but not in a way like she was following Jesus. It was very odd, and like I said, the way she moved, she was a slim person. She was looked pretty fit. She was relatively attractive, but there was something jerky about her motions. It's so hard to describe this because it's surreal when I think back on it. It just, so she disappears into the kitchen, and it's not a big apartment. I'm sure she could hear us, but I spoke to my companion in English because he just really didn't understand a lot of Norwegian. I said, you know, something's off here. I don't know if we should stick around. We should maybe gracefully excuse ourselves. And he's like, oh no, we never get in. We should talk to this person. You know, nobody ever lets us in, which is true. It was very rare for anybody to invite us into their home. So I kind of like, okay, I'll give it a little more time. She comes back in, she puts, I don't remember what it was. Norwegians are really famous for serving people snacks and stuff if they come to their homes. It was probably like some open-faced sandwiches and crackers and maybe some punch or something like that. I sat down, she sat down opposite of us. I think him and I were on a couch and she was in a chair across from us. And I all of a sudden, I always tried to make eye contact with people when I was teaching them because I wanted them to know that, hey, I'm being sincere about this. I'm trying to teach you about something that I believe in, at least I thought I did. And all of a sudden, I could not make eye contact. I would look at her and I'd have to look down. Something in her eyes had changed. Something very creepy, demonic. I don't know exactly. So I'm like, can we tell you a little bit about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? And this is when it starts turning really weird. Because I'll never forget this line. And I didn't include this last time I told this story. She's like, something to the effect of Jesus is my husband or my lover or something really weird like that. Not like we were, like, you know, we serve Jesus. We're here to glorify him. It wasn't like that. It was really weird, really creepy. And then it really kind of hit me like, okay, this is off. This is really weird. She started talking more, and I started having a hard time understanding her. And I spoke Norwegian very well. And I, at this time, had picked up that dialect really well. I didn't have any problem understanding people. I don't know what happened. Something changed in her whole demeanor, her whole being. I could not look in her eyes anymore. Something took her over. Let's put it that way. And I don't know that she had full control of herself. I don't know that she did when we got there, because something was off when we got there, but something changed drastically. And I was kind of nudging my companion, like trying to get the hint across to him, like, we got to get out of here. This is not good. She started talking about Christianity and how it's evil, and but then she would start kind of babbling, like just incoherent. But by her facial expressions, to her it was making sense. And I remember my companion even was like, okay, this is even harder than Norwegian than I'm used to, and what's going on here? And I remember saying to her, we need to leave. I'm sorry, we forgot about an appointment. I don't remember what excuse I made. We have an appointment, we need to go, I forgot about this. And she kind of stood up, and her demeanor changed from happy to like angry, but she looked evil. And I don't know how to describe that. I really don't. Something came over her, and you can all decide what that was for yourselves. To me, it was some evil presence. Maybe she always had that, maybe it came into the room, but the whole room felt dark. And the room was already, I already mentioned that it was kind of, she had the shades pulled, so there was the, you know, the bright sunny day was not coming in, and it felt like the darkness dropped even a little more. My companion was kind of just sitting there, kind of smiling, and as it went on, this lasted for several minutes. I could see his smile just kind of starting to fade, and I could tell he didn't feel quite right, but he didn't understand what was happening. And in the last time I told this story, some of you were like, well, that doesn't make any sense. If you felt it, he'd have felt it. You got to remember, some of this has to do with what she was saying in Norwegian that he could not comprehend or understand. And I couldn't just sit there and translate all this to him as it was happening. You know, the whole point is to kind of learn as you go. I stood up and started moving past the couch. And my companion just kind of sat there looking at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, and I finally said in English, we need to go. We need to go. And I could tell he was kind of frustrated because like he said, we never get in places. And she was not a big woman. I don't remember how tall she was, but she was significantly smaller than me. And she kind of started mirroring me as I moved across the room. And not quite blocking me, but definitely hinting towards blocking me. And I remember thinking, if she blocks me, if she gets in my way, what do I do? You know, I can't physically move this woman. That'd be so inappropriate. And I just kept sliding towards the door, just kind of moving slowly, and she was mirroring me. She wasn't even looking at my companion. I think she realized he didn't have a clue what was going on here. It, whatever that freak it was. He finally got up and kind of came over beside me, and I just said something like, we have to go now. And as we got to the steps. Like I said, it was a staircase going up. We got to the door, and the door hadn't been closed, so the steps was open, and we started walking down. And I remember I remember looking back up at her, and this look of just fury, evil fury in her face. And she started talking again, and it wasn't making sense. It wasn't any Norwegian I know. I will go back. I'm going to find that journal entry. And then I'll be able to nail down the date, because I'm a little off on the date. I think it was the summer of '83 or the fall of '83. I think it was Kristiansund or Bodø. But, you know, it's 43 years ago. I'm kind of guessing. As we walked down the stairs, it felt like that darkness was following us down the stairs. Like, not just, you walk into a dark room, it's dark. It's not, it doesn't really feel like anything. This felt like something trying to envelop us, trying to grab us. And by the time we got to the bottom of the stairs, I remember it being a really long staircase for just being, you know, on the second floor of this building. And when we opened that door and that sun hit us, it was like open arms bringing us out into the light, literally and figuratively. And once we closed that door behind us, it all lifted. This oppressive, if you've ever watched the Harry Potter movies, which we raised our kids on, I still love Harry Potter. I have listened to all of those books several times. Those audiobooks are some of my favorites. Yes, I know they're kind of kids' books, but they kind of aren't, especially the later ones get kind of dark. And Jim Dale, the narrator, was an amazing dude. He nailed it. But if you're familiar with that, then you're familiar with the Dementors. And when a Dementor would enter an area, it would just bring darkness, and it would suck all the happiness out of Harry and his friends and whoever was there, and you felt like you were never going to be happy again. The longer I stayed in that apartment, the more that feeling of kind of despair and just darkness, but not just physical darkness, like almost like being smothered by it, like closing in on you, claustrophobic. And it was just, well, it ranks right up there. There are two experiences in my life, and I told the other story about meeting who I think was a serial killer in Canada when I was 16. I might retell that one sometime too, because that one people seemed quite interested in that. Those two experiences, both I felt like I was in the presence of evil, but with the murderer dude, it was a different kind of evil. I didn't feel that like oppressiveness. I just felt like this is a bad person. And I didn't know he was a murderer at the time. I just knew there was something really off with the guy. If you want to watch that video, I think I called it something like the freakiest or scariest experience of my life. And it was, because I felt afterwards that I had actually been in serious physical danger. Like he might have killed me. This one was way more of a spiritual darkness. You know, I really try to live my life in the good. Even though I'm not part of the Mormon church anymore, I try to live a godlike life, which I fail at all the time. I'm a flawed human being. But I try to treat people right. I try to be nice to people. I try to have a positive attitude and kind of walk in light. And that woman was not. Something took her over. And the longer we were there, the stronger that presence got. And I don't know what would have happened if we just stayed there another half hour. I have no idea. I don't even like thinking about it. I had another kind of similar experience in Norway on my mission that was very creepy as well. I don't like stuff like that. You know, being raised in the church, I was really, that kind of stuff really freaked me out. And so I was already predisposed to be kind of freaked out by that, and then to just feel the presence that came into that room. All right, I can feel my mood, my whatever has dropped since I started this video. That's why I don't really like talking about it. I like talking about happy things. Even when I'm talking about my church experiences, I try to keep them positive. But this was such a unique experience that a lot of you seem to really be into when I told the story last time. So I thought I would go into more detail. And this, it still might not be enough detail for some of you. I don't know what to tell you. It's an old memory from a long time ago that stuck with me for decades. So anyway, let me know what you think. Have you had experiences like that? You don't need to go into a ton of detail, but if you kind of know what I'm talking about, if you've experienced something like that, you know, then you know what I'm talking about. Some of you might think I'm full of crap, that it's just I made it all up in my head. I don't know. I know what I felt. I know what I saw. You know, I'm a pretty skeptical person when it comes to a lot of things. I don't just accept things easily. So even back when I was 19, I was not a very gullible person. There's hornets out here. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. Yeah, leave me your comments, tell me your stories. I've mentioned before, I wanted to get to the point where I maybe start interviewing some people and about different things, not just this, but lots of different things, and some fun stuff too, you know, camping, riding, the stuff we're really into. So I will leave it there. Tack för denna gång. Vi snackas igen snart. Peace, love. I appreciate you watching. Try to walk in the light, whether you're Christian or whatever you are. Try to treat people right. I say all the time, worship the way that makes you happy. Just don't hurt anybody. Yeah. Have a fantastic day. Talk to you all soon.